What's up everyone, no respawns here, hope you're doing well. So, we're back in the castle, and this is a weird little build that's necessary, but it's not really a build as such. What this is the courtyard, the very central part of the courtyard. Now, you probably see what I'm doing right here, is I'm measuring out the angles to match the outside, so the 5 sides of the castle here. And what I'm doing, there are probably better ways of doing this, but I experimented with several ways, and this was just the easiest way of doing it. So all of the 2 sides are level. Because the reason being is I'm going to have a 5-sided shape, I don't know what it is, on the inside that will be the inner courtyard. Now, the reason why I'm having to do this first is I mentioned in my last video how I want the castle to kind of resemble Megaton to an extent. And the idea being that we're going to have this central area and it's going to kind of go out like a stadium almost. So you're going to have kind of like the lowest level right in the center, and it's going to get higher and higher and higher. So you kind of do need to do the central part first to make sure, so it doesn't look silly basically. So it gives you a kind of a strong central area to work out from, rather than, you know, just kind of adding buildings here and just kind of like winging it. It'll just give it a sense of structure basically. That's the whole idea. I was realizing that I did actually have to do this first, which is why it's not necessarily a build as such. You'll see the tour at the end. What I've gone and done is I've added a couple of I've added the first tier of buildings in, but they're not actually, I basically put some shit buildings in to kind of show you vaguely what it'll look like effectively. But it's quite cool, and I'm quite excited. When I did that, I was like, oh, because the thing is, obviously this is the 3rd version of the castle I've made. I was a bit worried it would look shit, or it wouldn't look any different from the other castles. But this one's gonna look really cool. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be awesome. And now you see what I'm doing right here. You don't have to be utterly honest, too tidy with it. It's just more about it just kind of looking like the sides need, the stupid fucking Minutemen running around, but the sides need to be even. That's important, or more or less even. As you can see, I would classify these as more or less even, and then they just need to kind of be at a reasonably centered in the middle of the courtyard. That's basically all you need, really. I was trying to do it in a clever way before. Now, see, I'm taking these off. Now that I've placed those on, the reason for the foundations just so it's the same height, because the one kind of, I guess, continuous point is from the actual doorway, like the back, well, technically the main doorway there, but that exit there will just be kind of slapped in later down the line. But the reason why I've got these thin little board thingamajigs is just because I want it to be walkways on the inside. Now this took me a while to figure out how to do this. And I'm quite pleased with what I ended up landing with, which is quite cool. I ended up taking these out and replacing it with the wee normal foundations at some point soon. Again, to remind everyone that the warehouse pieces, for whatever reason, are awesome for their snappage. Look at that. Look at the snappage. Fucking brilliant. I actually ended up taking those off and using plywood, but still. So yeah, this was an odd one. I was like, do I show them a video of this? No, because if I don't show you this, you'll all be confused on why it isn't looking correct. So I will have, the great thing is, now that we've done this, and you'll see when I do the little tour at the end, it's like, it kind of is starting to make sense. So, funny story, how I initially intended to do this was I was going to be all clever and get it like, so it's all sides are exactly correct. And how did I end up trying to do it? I was trying to do it in several different ways by, like, working from a central square and moving outwards. It was an absolute nightmare, basically. It just didn't work. So, I mean, someone who, I don't know, an architect or someone who is good at calculating the various angles might be able to do something a little bit more structured and organised than me, but mine, to be honest, just works, really. So you can see it's what I'm doing right now is just kind of adding effectively a foundation. I mean, you could have it the 2, so obviously those are one of the small boards. You could have it so it's one bigger board thickness, but you're going to run out of space. So that's the reason why I've kept it like this, and I've just opted for the grating floor just because it looks cool. This central tier will be mostly shops. Spoiler. I think that's going to be the idea. I'm still trying to figure out what the other... the style of the building, because I still want all of the buildings to be set pieces. That's very important, as I've mentioned before, how I like having buildings to be interesting, kind of like how I've done Spectacle Island or Nordhagen, you know, where I've made it so each building is a little bit weird. Now, obviously, I'm going to be limited on space quite a bit, but let's see me get stuck there. But at the same time, I kind of want them to look cool. So when you see the tour, bear in mind these are literally just right. I've just slapped some square box structures in just to kind of give you guys a vague shape. I've been planning this build for a while. I didn't know what to do. I was like, I knew. The good thing is, right, while I was doing this and while I've been just kind of like basically spending the last 2 days staring at the castle going, what? The basic one thing I've realized is the castle isn't actually that big. Like, I always think when I do the castle, oh, it's going to be an epic big build. It really isn't that much space. To be honest, it's you know, Red Rocket sized, really, if you look at it. Maybe a little bit bigger. It's not as big as Nordhagen, but it's just because obviously it's got this pre-existing big structure already there, which I quite like, because it means that I can actually do this kind of megaton style bigger building without actually having too much worry. Now, one thing while I'm doing this part, and I recommend, well, I'm not going to be doing it, but you notice I've done, and you'll see I tidy these up to make them look nice. So the inside courtyard looks cool in a sec. I don't decorate it in any way, shape, or form, however. But that I don't put any of these kind of boards on the back, effectively. So I'm doing the inside of the courtyard now, but I'm not actually going to put anything on the back just yet. The reason being is obviously because we're not going to be putting the buildings in yet. We don't know how each building is going to attach. So, yeah. So basically, when you're doing this part, if you want to follow how I'm doing it, just do the inside part here, but then don't do anything on the back just yet, because obviously you don't want to put loads of effort putting boards on and then like have to take them off when you're trying to attach buildings on or do kind of weird and wonderful buildings. This is going to be really weird. I've got to figure out what buildings. I've got styles. I'm going to kind of probably do tweaked versions of buildings we've done before, I think. But I also want... It's going to look cool. It's going to look cool. I'm looking at the tiers. So basically we're going to have... It should be a pleasant squeeze as well, if you think about it. Because I've got them about... It's about 2 or 3 of the kind of standard size boards coming from each side. So basically that means we can have 2 tiers of thinner buildings with like a small walkway going between each. That's the vague plan. As you can see here, I've just kind of slapped these boards in there. The thicker ones add a bit of texture onto the inside. So in essence, this isn't a mess of, like, once you've started building on this, you'll see that this part is essential, because without this, you wouldn't be able to kind of keep all of the various tiers the right shape and kind of even and spread out, and it just kind of gives you a kind of a visual aid. But at the same time, it isn't necessarily creative, but it was, because it took me a while to figure out how to do it properly and exactly the best way. It was interesting, but I thought, right, I have to put this in a video because you'll be lost and confused without this. Initially, I was just going to start building stuff. I was like, oh yeah, I'll build a house. I'll build a house. Like, no. You need to do this first. All right, so the tour is coming in a sec. So that's effectively what you need to do first, this part right here. But here we go. So as you can see, these are just kind of like random little box structures that I've slapped in just to give you a vague idea of what's going on. And I've even put little bridges just kind of in between so you can go like, okay. But if you kind of visually imagine it now, ignoring the fact that these are ugly, aren't they? Remind me a little bit of my vanilla structures I used to make. Is you're going to have this tier here, so this will be the lowest, well, technically the inside, the courtyard will be the lowest area. And then you'll have this one here, and then you'll have another group of buildings that are either going to be one entire structure higher, or kind of a board and a half. I'm not too sure the height difference. And then on the actual battlements, there'll be another set of buildings. So it will basically be 3 layers. It's going to be really, really cool. What I'm doing is I will be putting this maybe after the next castle video into a nice little playlist called kind of Castle 3.0 modded or something bullshit like that. Just so everything is kind of condensed in kind of like quite a nice straightforward. This will actually probably be less videos than the old castle, I think. Potentially, because it's going to be a bit more succinct, but we'll see. Anyway, I hope you guys found this useful. I know it's not necessarily like, oh, creative build, but you can visually see right now it's very important to the actual structure and the future of how this build is going to develop. Anyway, as always, follow me on Twitter at norespawns. I have a new video up soon, and you guys enjoy your weekend. You take care.